Well, we came in and they said, well, you didn't put your name on the list. I said, well, no, you're next on the list. I said, oh. And so, it didn't show, so they called us at 7 p.m.
There you go.
Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll get started and call the Colorado PUC 911 Task Force meeting to order. So we can do introductions first.
Before we do that, if that's all right, Ken would like to say a couple words just to welcome everybody to the facility.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. Real quick, first of all, thank everybody for coming here. In behalf of Motorola, appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Couple things down that main hall on the right, it's the restroom. Lunch will be here 11:30 noonish, and grab Mark, Lane, Diana if you need anything else. But thank you so much for coming, and we're glad you're here. Thanks, Daryl.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
So for those on the phone, instead of taking roll call over the phone, which is always awkward, we're going to have you email me. So the email address is daryl.branson@state.co.us. Please just email me and let me know that you're on the call. That way I can get a roll call without us having to have people talk over each other for 15 minutes. And for those of you in the room, if you're not a voting member especially, please make sure you sign in on the sign-in sheet. There's one over there on the table by the wall. I'm guessing a lot of you didn't see that, so if you wouldn't mind, make sure before you leave to sign in on that sheet so that we have a record of everyone who's here. And now, for the voting members, we'll just go through roll call. So for CCI, we have Barb Kirkmeyer or Mike Wallace. I saw Mike Wallace here. For CML, Megan Dollar. Megan, are you on the phone? And perhaps before we go any further, I should ask, can people on the phone hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Is Megan Dollar here? Okay. Cheryl is here. And by the way, happy birthday, Gil.
Oh,
This is the birthday boy. You get an extra cookie on the way out.
I do.
Yes.
Well, I already stole one, so.
Well, there you go. Tim Kunkelman or Wes Horn, and I believe both are here. Mary Jane Rasher.
On the phone, thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Wes Horn is here. This is actually vacant. Michael Bagley. Nothing heard. Eric Preston.
Here.
Thank you, Eric. Ray Paddock is here. Yep. Jay Slater or Aaron Harris.
Aaron's here.
Hi, Aaron. Phil Campbell or Connie Johnson. Do we have Phil Campbell or Connie Johnson? Nothing heard. Lori McCarty or Tammy Shupp.
Lori McCarty on the phone.
Thank you, Lori. Don Collins.
Yes. Here.
Kimberly Culp.
I'm here.
Kimberly. Betty DeShazer Hernandez. Beth Dobransky.
I'm here.
Beth
Daryl, I'm
Dobransky.
here.
Hi, Beth. Bruce is here. Valicia Librand. Nothing heard. Jeff Irvin told me he wasn't going to be here today. Jeff, did you make it?
I'm on the bridge.
Thanks, Jeff. Connie Johnson or Phil Campbell again? Nothing heard. Paula Creasy.
Carl Stevens, proxy for Paula.
Hi, Carl. Athena Butler or Shelley Lesnansky? Thank you, Shelley. Vicki Pickett.
Here, on the phone.
Thank you, Vicki. Scott Newman. Sean Shearer or Brandy Seaton? Sure, Sean. Carl Simpson or John Lofgren?
Good morning, Daryl. It's Carl.
Hi, Carl. And we said Carl Stevens is also here. Patty West. We have 79% of voting members in attendance, so we do have a quorum. If I can remember how to get back here. There we go. And thank you to, oh, somebody talked. Darla's on the computer. No, we don't want to do that. And thank you to Motorola for letting us use this facility. We've never, it's their first meeting in here, but it's nice to have access to the cameras and the overhead speakers and everything that has been difficult at some of our previous meetings. So they'll be very helpful. Madam
Can you
Chair?
go around the room and do introductions or?
Sure. Darrell Branson, Public Utilities Commission.
Bruce Romero, Arapahoe County 911 Authority.
Monica Million, Colorado Resource Center.
Lynette Martin, Morgan County.
Lisa Gertson, Morgan County.
I'm Gil Garcia. I'll be interpreting for Cheryl if she needs me. And this is Cheryl Garcia. She's the Disability Integration Specialist for the Red Cross for Colorado, Wyoming. And here too. Or what? And what? And I'm here for all of you as well.
Shelley Lastansky, Denver.
Luke Adams. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Commission for the Deaf, Hard of Hearing, and Blind. Carol Workman, Fort Collins, San Juan.
Ed Mills, OIT, and Lieutenant with the Marine Fire Rescue.
Eric Stevens with Bandit.
Aaron Harris with Bandwood. Tim Conklin with CenturyLink.
Dylan Collins, Washington, Yuma County, 911.
Betty DeShazer with that.
Sean Cheer, Thornton. Kathy Rayleigh, Arapahoe County.
Ray Paddock at Telequint.
Karen Stevens, Laura.
Joe Benford.
Patty West, representing Forward, Wilson.
Wes Horn, CenturyLink.
Steve Fullerton with Solicon.
Becky Louise, 911 Solutions. Jeannie Shen, Douglas County.
Daryl Pratt, Chip County.
Mike Wallace, CCI.
Kim, I think we missed you.
Kim Coleman Madsen, Colorado Broadband Office.
And then a few people in the back here.
Thomas Monroe. Diane Courthouse.
Mark Raptor, Motorola. Michael Motorola.
And everyone met Ken already. It's a big Motorola turnout. I wonder why.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. So the next item was approval of the minutes, but we have no minutes to approve. So we will move on to officer elections. So we have a vacancy as the vice chair and the secretary. So
Correct. So vice chair has to be a voting member. Secretary has to be a voting member or staff member of the PUC. I'm willing to run again for secretary unless somebody else wants it. So should we, I guess we'll just open it up for nominations first on vice chair.
nominations for vice chair.
And by the way, vice chair serves for a year and then becomes the chair. You should know that before you volunteer. Come on, guys.
This is Carl Stevens. I'd be willing to volunteer for that.
Thanks, Greg.
Bruce? No? Okay. Thank you, Carl. Anyone else? Okay. You want to close nominations on that?
With no other nominations, we'll close nominations. Congratulations. Or just do we need to vote on it?
We should.
All right. So I'd entertain motion to approve the vote or the nomination.
Should we wait and see if we've got another nomination for secretary?
I don't know if you want to do them separately or together.
Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay, so we could have one vote for both then.
That would be great. So I move that we close nominations for both positions, vice chair and secretary. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the nominees.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Cheryl seconds. So congratulations.
So
Oh,
wait,
all
should-
in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Thank you.
Yay.
So also now we need to do resource center elections. So it looks like we have some terms that are expiring, West Harm, Carl Stevens, and Carl Simpson.
So one has to be a telecom representative, which is what West Warren was filling, and two have to be task force representatives. But they're all elected by the task force. Two have to be 911 representatives. That's Carl Stevens and Carl Simpson's term expiring.
So I would open nominations for the telecom representative.
Wes?
This is Carl Stevens. I'm still interested in being on the board.
You run again?
This is Carl. I'm still interested in being on the board.
Any other telecom representatives? Okay, anyone else for the 911 positions? Oh. Okay. That's for the task force voting member position.
Daryl, this is Darla. Put me in where you need me to be.
Darla, are you asking to be back on the voting member of the task force or on the resource center board, or both?
Whichever you need me to be.
Okay. So to clarify, what happened is we didn't hear back from Darla for the elections of the voting members of the task force. So that position is vacant, but she's asked to be reinstated. So that would be a separate vote. What I would suggest is that a current voting member of the task force needs to fill the resource center position. So I would say that right now what we have is Wes, unless somebody else who's also a voting member wants to be nominated. And then we can have a separate vote on putting Darla back on the as a voting member of the task force. Right. Any other 911 people want to nominate for Carl or Carl's position? So in that case, Danette, I believe we have one candidate for each of the three positions, so we could just do a simple vote on that.
So all those in favor of keeping West Horn, Carl Stevens, and Carl Simpson to represent the resource center and the telecom and the task force positions, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Congratulations. So now do we need to do with Darla?
Yeah, and I meant to put that on the agenda, and I apologize for that. So Darla would like to nominate herself to be on the voting member on the task force for rural local exchange carrier. That's the one vacant position. And so do we have any other nominees for that position? And it's actually for local exchange carrier. There's two positions for local exchange carrier. CenturyLink has one, and Darla from Nuclear Naturita Telephone had the other, and she would like to be reappointed to that position. Any other local exchange carrier nominations? In that case, I think we could have a vote.
Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor of continuing Darla in that position on the task force, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Was that an opposition? Or is that just a delayed yes? To clarify, was anyone in opposition?
I think that was an aye.
Okay. So it's passed.
Right, the majority vote, so congratulations. Moving on to number 6, reports, Daryl PUC staff update.
I was just making sure I'm keeping up with the chat messages. Okay, first item, the Federal 911 Grant Program. As of the writing of this report, and also as of today, they have still not released the final list of eligible states. Once they do, and what each state is eligible to receive, once they do that, that will start the clock for applications. We're expecting a 60-day clock to be put in place. My understanding is that NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, has approved the updated grant information, but NTIA has not. So we don't know what the holdup is there. Of course, we are now on day 20 of the federal government shutdown, so that has played a part in it, I'm sure. We will definitely not hear anything back from them until the government reopens. So your guess is as good as mine on when that will be. The plan for the use of the grant fund remains paying the non-recurring costs of the CenturyLink ESINet tariff for every PSAP, and then paying what we hope will be approximately 1 year worth of the increase in recurring costs for the ESINet tariff as compared to the cost previously paid under the legacy tariff. So for 1 year, we'll cover those increases to give the 911 authorities the ability to adjust their budgets, adjust their surcharge rates, whatever they need to do to be able to pay those higher rates. And so it won't come as quite as much of a sticker shock to people. There is a 40% matching requirement, but at this point, we're not anticipating any of the 911 authorities or PSAPs having to pay any of that, since the PUC has set aside $1 million worth of funds from a performance program fund that they had set aside for that purpose. So that's all hopefully good news to you guys. I hope that is something that works out in a way that is beneficial to you. Based on the conversations I've had internally at DORA as to how they want to manage this, it looks like each 911 governing body will have to sign a grant agreement with DORA in order to receive funds. That's a standard requirement that they have. Along with that agreement, the governing bodies will need to submit to PUC staff a recent example of their recurring monthly charges so that we can set a baseline for paying the difference between the two. The matching funds will be dispersed to you in advance of you paying. That way, when you pay it, you can then attest to say that no federal funds were used, and you know exactly where the matching funds came from for you to pay that. And then you'll get a reimbursement for the rest. So you'll get 40% of the cost up front and then 60% as a reimbursement, which I think is actually even better because it'll give you guys the funds up front to pay for those. Then you'll submit proof of payment to us. We'll submit that to the federal government. Federal government will give us money, and then we'll give you the reimbursement. So it's a kind of a dance, but it's kind of the bureaucratically the way it has to be done to make sure that it's going through all of the proper channels. Does anybody have any questions about that? And kind of on this topic, as well as the new ESINet tariff, maybe this would be a good time to talk about. Monica and I have kind of discussed maybe doing a roadshow sort of thing, maybe doing some regional meetings to talk to the 911 authorities and maybe get CenturyLink involved in that if you have people available to do that, to talk about what the new tariff means to you, what the costs are going to be to you, how that's going to work with the grant, kind of tie it all in together so that everybody understands what's coming and what's being done to help make it as easy of a migration as possible. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments on that idea of doing maybe, I don't know how many regional meetings we can set up, but at least 4, one for each corner of the state, maybe more if we can find the time to break it down into more meetings. According to the tariff, the first migration starts at the end of July, so we certainly want to get them done before then so that everybody sees that before the actual migrations begin.
Our idea is to ensure that as we have these meetings in the different sectors of the state, that it gives you an opportunity to invite your authority board members, your commissioners, county accounting, your finance folks. Because for some of these folks, especially the ones that never participate in this stuff, it's going to be a huge sticker shock. And most of them really probably won't understand the implication of what all this means, what the technology capabilities are going to be for them. So we're we really want to take the education piece to them, even though we've found an avenue to help everybody pay for this in the first year. They've got to get a plan in place in their own communities, in their own jurisdiction, so that they can carry the cost forward. So.
Right. Mike, you had something?
So I think going around and meeting would be a good idea for all the PSAC. But I guess my question is that schedule that was introduced in that tariff, is that still accurate from a CenturyLink perspective as we speak today for implementation? Because I'm under the impression there possibly could be a delay in that.
Well, I'm not aware of a delay. So as far as that schedule, it seems like it's going to be the one that'll work. We obviously understand that there might be some changes that need to be made from the customer side. I haven't heard of any delays, so maybe you can speak more to that.
Okay. Well, I was just under the impression that that the network hasn't been completed yet, so that it was going to take CenturyLink some time to wrap that up. And the reason I say that is I know Weld County is slated for May in that calendar as part of that tariff. So
That's, I think, May of this year.
yeah,
That's an old.
That would be an old list, yeah.
so has that been?
So there were two different schedules. One was attached to a draft tariff that was attached to the settlement. And then there's the one that CenturyLink just filed. And that's the up-to-date
Yeah,
one.
so the first date that we have is going to be July 3rd for what we're just technically calling the order date. Right now, what we're doing is working with West to fill this. So that's what's happening right now. And that'll take place over the next 6 or 7 months. Then that order date will then just sort of help trigger some of the system things that process-wise need to happen between us and West. And then the first migration date is slated for October 1st, and that's going to start in Douglas County.
And is the new rate on migration date? Is that when you start paying?
On migration date,
On
correct.
migration.
Darrell, can you include the updated calendar when you do the follow-up email?
Okay, sure. In fact, I'll send out the whole tariff.
Jim, was there an earlier date that CenturyLink was
I mean, we had earlier dates before, but that was based on the tariff getting approved earlier. So
the first date is now July.
it's July, right?
Yeah,
Although
but there is still an order date and a migration
Yeah, an
date.
order date and
Yeah.
a migration date, so they're about 3 months.
Thank you, Tim.
So everybody thinks that's a good idea for us to go around, so you can have an opportunity to, I mean, because really this is quite impactful from a fiscal perspective, and your local government folks are gonna go, what? You need how much more money?
I think it's a great idea. How soon do you want to start?
Well, obviously, we had to wait
I think-
until the tariff officially passed,
Right.
so.
So I think Monica, me, and someone from CenturyLink, either Tim or Wes, could probably work out a schedule.
Yeah.
Start getting that
My
going.
travel schedule is filling up, so we need to probably,
Yeah.
in the next week or two, sit down and narrow down some dates and at least try to coordinate with you guys to see what works for you and when you can get your folks together, so.
We all know how busy you are, President-elect. See how much time you have for us when you're president of NINA.
Wow. Still have a paying job. Paying.
So the next item was just the tariff itself. The settlement was filed on August 31st. I apparently didn't update this section, but there was a hearing on November 7th. And there was a recommended decision came out on December. Was it December 5th? I can actually.
It might have been a little bit earlier than that, but I think the 20 days ran on the 20.
24th was the final day.
24th
And
became
they
truly
were not
effective.
meeting that day, so it was actually earlier, but the 24th was actually.
Right, the 24th was the day that if the other commissioners hadn't said anything about it, then it officially becomes the decision of the commission.
And then we go into triple R, yes.
December 3rd is
No,
when
that
the,
was the 20 days.
That was, so we're done?
so December 3rd was the recommended decision. It became the official decision of the commission on the 24th. There was a 20-day triple R period, which is now passed. Right?
The 20-day period came from the December 3rd.
From the December 3rd date. Lynn, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. Someone was in my office. Did you have a question for me?
Yeah, so can you confirm where we're at on the triple R period for the tariff? Is it done?
It's all done just because the tariff is effective.
Yeah.
Effective on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was done, I think, wasn't it the 24th of December?
Well, that was the official date that it became the commission's decision. Was there a triple R
Became
period after that?
effective?
Yeah.
No, it was issued on the 4th. The commission decision was issued on the 4th.
Of December.
And the 20 days.
That's
for triple
Teresa
R-
speaking.
I'm sorry. The 20 days was the 24th.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I thought too.
So that's it.
But to Tim's, I think it was Tim's point, the tariff is ineffective. So I think at this point, any challenge to that would have to file a petition or something and ask the commission to revisit the tariff.
Okay. Any questions about that? Now that we've thoroughly confused everyone.
It's in effect.
It's in effect.
It's in effect.
Correct. That's what matters.
Yep.
Regarding federal rulemakings, there was a notice of proposed rulemaking on implementing Kerry's Law and Section 506 of Ray Baum's Act. Comments were due on December 10th. Reply comments were due yesterday, so we've missed both cycles on that. I had started on comments. It was well over 100 pages, and I just couldn't get through it. I had too many other things going on.
My comments are now extended to the day after the FCC reopens.
Oh, okay. I did not hear that. So according to Joe, if anybody didn't hear, the reply comments have now been extended to the day after the FCC reopens, whenever that is. It's a very interesting rulemaking. If you can get through it, it's very dense reading, but if you can get through it, I kind of recommend taking a look at it. It kind of goes through the main purpose of it was to implement location requirements for multi-line telephone systems, but while they were at it, they decided to revisit every other form of telecommunications that can call 911 and the location requirements for each of those. So that's why it's so long and it's very dense. But they do have a lot of proposed rules in there. You know, it's up to you to decide whether those rules are is in 911's favor or not, and decide if you want to write reply comments. Joe, do you know if Bretsa's planning on filing anything?
We filed comments, we're working on reply comments.
Okay.
One of the rules, there were rules to implement the Kerry's Law, which were direct dialing to 911, and then at the same time, notification to an on-site location when 911 is called. And the Ray Baum's part was extended to all communications and sending dispatchable location.
Right.
And then at the same time, they decided this rulemaking to take all of the 911 rules, which are scattered in the parts of the rules pertaining to different services, and consolidate them in one rule part for the 911 rules. And that's why there are so many rules at the end of it.
And a big part of the request for comments was on what it means to have on-site notification. There was a lot of discussion about that. You know, what happens if it's at a facility that isn't staffed 24/7? Do they now have to staff 24/7? Or can they use an off-site call service? So there's a lot of interesting discussion in there, and I'd be interested to see how it all falls out.
In addition, the comments that were filed by the companies to provide MLTS, most that filed were very large type customer providers. Ones that provide the location information as a supplemental service, very informative, And the Alarm Association filed comments saying that their members would also like to essentially take the notifications, in some cases be able to remotely unlock doors and video and things. So it was fairly interesting of where technology is.
Any other comments on that notice of proposed rulemaking from the FCC? The FCC had another public notice seeking comment that might be of interest, and that is on the 10th annual report to Congress on the state collection and distribution of 911 and enhanced 911 fees and charges. Every year, the FCC requests the state, all of the states and territories, to report to them how much money was received statewide from 911 surcharges. We do estimates every year since these are remitted locally in Colorado. We have to estimate based on partial reporting, but I believe that we're getting fairly close to the actual amount. And report that to the FCC, tell them what it can be spent on, tell them that to our knowledge, no funds have been diverted for other purposes. And then they put all of that together into a report to Congress. One of the things that, and comments are due on the report by January 18th, reply comments due by February 4th. How much effect you believe these comments will have is up to you, because the report's already gone to Congress, so they're not going to change the report, but they did include in this report the comments they received from the last report. So whatever comments we do send in, hopefully those will be part of next year's report. I did prepare comments on behalf of the PUC, and I'm working through the approval process to get those submitted from the PUC itself. I had a couple of problems with the report that the FCC sent to Congress, particularly as it pertains to Colorado, because one of the questions they ask is, how much money has the state spent on Next Generation 911? Well, the state has spent no money on Next Generation 911 in Colorado, but that just reporting that to the Congress makes it look like no money has been spent on Next Gen 911 in Colorado. But that does not reflect how 911 is funded in Colorado, since it is all funded from the local level. Your PSAPs have purchased new phone equipment. Some of you have probably purchased new CAD equipment that's Next Gen 911 compliant that you didn't have compliant before. Some of you have bought new recording equipment that is Next Gen 911 compliant. When the ESINet tariff goes in place, all of those payments are going to be made, and the non-recurring and the recurring costs are going to be made from the local level. So to just say the state has spent no money on Next Gen 911 does not paint the whole picture. When I submitted the report to the FCC, I put that nuance in the report and stated local governments have spent money on Next Gen 911, but the state does not spend money on 911. But that nuance didn't make it into the report to Congress. So one of my comments to the FCC is to make sure they include that nuanced information. If we put some information in our report that puts our information in context, make sure to include that in your report to Congress. So that was one of the issues. And then there was some, they asked what the FCC's role should be in making sure that states do not divert 911 funds. We don't believe that that's necessarily a FCC matter to resolve. How states spend money that they raise under their own state statutes is not a federal matter. So that was another part of our comments there. So if and when that gets approved internally at the PUC, I'll send a copy out to everybody so you can see what we said. Any questions on that?
Renzo filed comments last year that addressed the fact that this report doesn't include any information from carriers as to how much they're remitting, how they're remitting, that sort of thing, which we think is part of the picture to get a complete report. That information, our comments were included, referenced in the report to Congress, and I think Congress would have to change the act that requires this report be filed, which is why the commission probably can't act on many of these things, because they need to then report to Congress and see if Congress acts. But I think other interested party stakeholders might also want to file comments. Supporting the idea that the carrier information should also be provided to help us get better accountability from the other side.
That's a good point. There was a declaratory rulemaking on December 13th, the FCC. This one kind of flew under the radar until it happened for me. I wasn't aware that this was going on or what the implications were, but there was a request, there was a petition for a declaratory rulemaking from the FCC to declare whether or not text messaging is an information service or a telecommunications service. And the FCC declared on December 13th that text messaging is a information service, which was counter to what the petitioner wanted, and therefore falls under the FCC's lighter regulatory framework. I was concerned that by doing so, the FCC might actually be hurting their own ability to require carriers to comply with text to 911, but I reached out to David Firth, who's the Deputy Director of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau at the FCC, and he assured me that that was not the case, and that in fact it was addressed in the declaratory ruling itself, that text to 911 is not affected by the change, or the clarification, I should say, of the declaratory ruling. The main reason why the majority of the commissioners on the FCC voted to make it an information service was that their stated intent was to ensure that the carriers still have the ability to weed out spam text messages to consumers. There was a dissenting opinion from Commissioner Rosenworcel that thought it was due to more. I'm having a hard time deciphering the context on this, but she thought it was due to more of a desire by the carriers to be able to control what goes through text messaging to consumers, rather than just keeping spam out. Cheryl?
This is not for information. By what? The cell phone is my communication device. So.
Yeah, and I think that was part of Commissioner Rosenworcel's argument, is that for a lot of people, that's their primary method of communication. So to not call it a telecommunications service seemed off to her. I'm not going to express opinion one way or the other, but I was just glad to hear that text 911 is not affected.
There were also reports that California was proposing to tax text messages on
Yes.
a text message basis. This was also a shortcut.
Potentially. I'm not sure what effect declaring it an information service stops the California PUC from doing that, but that may be part of the motive of it, for sure. Yes.
I think there could be arguments made for that.
Possibly, although the fact that the FCC says it does not affect their ability to require carriers to participate in text and 911 kind of tells me that 911 is maybe carved out a little bit of that. I don't know. I think this is an interesting decision, and I think we're going to have to wait to see how it plays out to some extent.
I think it runs online that the FCC had ruled that they haven't determined whether VoIP is a telecommunications and information service that's at either way be that jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're doing the same with text messaging.
Oh, and by the way, in his comments, Commissioner O'Reilly said that he hopes that in the future, the FCC will do the same thing for VoIP and VoLTE. So, interesting times. Under federal legislation, there's no change. I did take a couple off of here. I keep them on here until they've been on there for a year with no action, with no movement. I can always put those back on, but they would have to be reintroduced. I'm guessing we won't see any movement for a while because they're a little distracted right now on things like government shutdowns and walls. Colorado legislation, I put in here the Colorado General Assembly began its session on January 4th. I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to look at all of the legislation that's come through, but I have not heard of anything 911 related being introduced yet. I'll start watching those and let the task force know if something gets introduced. And it's interesting, we go from number 5 to number 7. I should proofread better. Let me pull up the outage dashboard. For those of you following at home, you can go to the Colorado 911 Resource Center, click on Authority and PSAP info on the left, and then click on Outage Dashboard. I changed the color scheme on this a little bit. Somebody told me it was very hard to read. We can get you a magnifying glass, Joe.
No, I mean, up there.
So the first page just shows the most recent outages. And then if you go to page 2, then we get into the charts. We haven't had any outages so far this year. As opposed to 2012 and 2014, we'd already had an outage by this time this year, and also 2017. Average duration, so this is a good time to look at this stuff. So you can see that our average duration was lower in 2018 than it was in 2017. And by the way, as a reminder, these are basic emergency service outages, so they only count outages from the basic emergency service provider and the rural local exchange carriers that act as the last mile. We don't get outage reports from Verizon or AT&T or Comcast or the other types of originating service providers. Average number of customers affected by basic emergency service outage, 2018 was a bad year for that, and that's because of a couple of statewide outages, particularly alley outages that affected a number of people. And that throws off a lot of the other averages. So you have your user minute, which is the number of users multiplied by the duration of the outage in minutes. 2018 was significantly higher than 2017, still better than 2013 with the flooding, but significantly higher than the last few years. And then the total user minute impact for the year 2018 was our highest. Again, that's due to several large outages that affected large numbers of people, even though the average duration of the outages was lower. And then you can see we don't have there's no pie chart showing here for year to date because there have been no outages yet, but for 2010 through 2018, you can see we're still roughly equal between accidental cable cuts and system failures, with everything else taking up a smaller piece of the pie. Vandalism being 2, other being 2, I think fire was one of them, maybe a car hitting a pole was another one. I can't remember exactly what caused those other 2. But weather and natural disasters make up about 12%. Let's keep starting off. I'm gonna have to turn off the screen save. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the outage, the nationwide outage that CenturyLink had, and maybe Tim can fill us in a little bit more on that as well, on December 27th and 28th. It's a Thursday and a Friday. There were lots of news reports about there being 911 outages. There were across different states of the country. To my knowledge, we didn't have any 911 outages here, although we did get reports of static on the line in a few cases and maybe some dropped calls that may have been related. Tim, do you have any other information you want to share with the group about that?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about it. So this outage primarily affected our nationwide network, which is some of our competitors purchase from us on a wholesale basis. So it didn't really affect the local network, and that's why we didn't see any real impacts, especially not here in Colorado. There was a couple of states that were dependent upon that network, that home network, that did have some 911 impacts, but primarily it was a long haul outage as opposed to a local outage, and that's why the impacts weren't as severe. What we found out was it was a card in Denver, Maine, that was propagating traffic. I sort of liken it to the horror movie about, the calls coming from the inside of the house. We thought it was, at first, we thought it was an attack on the network, and it was large amounts of traffic being propagated. And so what the network does is it compartmentalizes that traffic. It starts shutting things down so that it can't cause problems elsewhere, right? And so once we were able to finally figure out that it was a card coming from our own network, sending a lot of bad traffic at high volume, then we were able to replace that and then start restoring all of the devices that had kind of shut themselves down so that they wouldn't continue to propagate a problem. So that's really what happened. I've never heard of it happening like that. That's the first time I've ever heard something like that happening to our network. So it was sort of an anomaly, to say the least, but it did take about 34 hours, I think is what the total time was to restore it all.
And the FCC did ask NASNA, the National Association of State 911 Administrators, who then asked the states to gather some information from their PSAP. So I sent a survey out over the governing body and PSAP listserv asking for information on that. I have not looked at the results of that yet. Tomorrow I'll be sending out a reminder to fill that out. But does anybody know, does anybody think that I was incorrect when I said that, as far as I know, there were no 911 outages? That what I did hear from a couple of PSAPs was static on the 911 lines and some dropped calls, but they were wireless calls, so it's not really clear whether that was related to the CenturyLink issue or not. Okay. Cheryl?
She's saying during an outage, we can text. During an outage, you might be able to still text.
You might be able to, yes.
Or you're asking, I'm asking, can you?
It will depend on what kind of outage it is, right? So if there's something that's shutting down all communications to the PSAP, then you're not going to be able to text.
All right. I have her number. So if I have to text, she's my go-to person.
You might. And that's the difficult thing with these kinds of outages is there's so many different ways that there can be problems on the network that how it affects what can be done and what can't be done is going to be different in every situation.
Denver has a
10-digit number.
It's not 911. I have tested them. Off.
Shelley's all right? She tests you often?
Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, and I know Denver had 10-digit lines before text to 911 was even a thing. And you guys have just kept those?
We have 3 of them, and we tried to get different carriers so that.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
But again, if something happens somewhere else in the network, it may or may not, but
Right.
we try to be redundant as possible.
Backups to the backups. I like it. Any other questions about outages? And that concludes my report.
Moving on to BSP reports, Andrew.
You know, I'll save some of it for the new item later on the user group, but I do want to say that I really appreciate everybody that participated in the tariff process. I know it took us about 18 months to work through that. Lots and lots of meetings, lots of conversations. I think ultimately we came out with a pretty good end result that will get us next gen compatible and capable in Colorado here over the next, probably takes still about another 18 to 24 months, I think, for everyone to be converted over to the EZNet, but I think it was a great result. We have some good things, and I think the user group is going to help out in a lot of ways as well. So I just want to say thanks to everybody. It's really a hard effort. Appreciate it.
And I'll say that I was on the other side of that, so I couldn't be part of the discussions. But I appreciate all the work that obviously went into it. I know how many meetings you had because I had two coworkers who were in those meetings, so they would go off and say, "What are you doing?" I can't tell you. But I know there was a lot of work that went into those meetings, and when I started with the Colorado 911 Resource Center back in 2009, that was one of the hot topics on the plate: is how do we get to next gen 911? And that year, Brian Shepard, who was chair of the task force at the time, held a next gen 911 summit. And that was the only topic of the entire one-day summit, was how do we get to next gen 911? And after all of these years, we now have a path. And I think that's terrific. Yet there are going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some funding challenges to make it happen and make it sustainable, but we're on a path that we've been working on for a very long time, and I think it's terrific.
I would second that. West Safety Communications.
I don't have anything to report today. Thank you.
Sorry, Jane. Moving on to standing committee reports. Agenda committee, Daryl.
I believe I should have looked before the meeting. I can't remember if I've got somebody slated for the March meeting yet or not. Please send me, as always, please send me your topic and speaker ideas. If you have any, send them to me. If not, then what I do is convene the agenda committee and do some brainstorming with that group. We haven't had to convene the agenda committee for a while because we've got this constant stream of suggestions and ideas. I believe, actually, yes, for the March meeting, we were going to have CenturyLink and West hopefully talk about cybersecurity. I know that you had too much on your plate to make it happen for this meeting, but we do have two speakers for today. So I think we're good through March, but again, go ahead and send me your ideas so we can make sure that we're ahead of the ball on that.
Bylaws committee, Kimberly.
No updates on the bylaws.
Thank you. Legislative committee. Nothing is not here, but Jack.
Yes, the legislative committee has been working very hard. We have created a legislative goal prioritization. We're currently going through those, putting down discussion points, trying to formalize a cohesive, this is kind of what we want, so that we can get a message out statewide, the same message to all, so that when we meet with legislators and everything else, that the 911 community has a consistent message throughout. And then we'll kind of work on further getting someone involved to help us, and et cetera. That's where we are today. We meet again Monday to go over next top priority and the discussion points there.
Jackie, do you mind if I piggyback onto that?
Go ahead.
So part of what the legislative subcommittee is doing as we prioritize the hot topics, if you will, then one of our goals, the legislative session obviously has started, but it ends in May. And we have a short window of opportunity to do what I'm calling, but I stole the idea from Bruce, lunch and learns. So once we finish this priority list, I want to schedule with our state legislators a lunch and learn at a happening cool PSAP here in the Denver metro area, because it will be close to them, that we're gonna hopefully create a list of talking points that we will distribute to everybody. I will make sure I'm present. I'll invite the legislators with your local PSAP's help to make a meet and greet at your facility so that we can start having some conversations to hopefully introduce some legislation in the 2020 session. That's our goal. That's ultimately our goal. So I think, so everybody understands what the big grand plan is, it's probably helpful. And you think your center, Denver 911, because you'll be brand new opening in the spring, I think. Maybe not. Oh, Shelley's making it.
It's April right now.
Okay. Or you're doing something cool at your center, that would be a great attraction, a good PR event. You know, you gotta, kiss babies and shake people's hands and make photo ops for them, and media opportunities, so we can encourage them to be there. That's ultimately what our goal is, to have this dialogue with this new legislature. Thank you, Jackie, for letting me pick that.
Thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Anything else, Jeff?
Can I, something I forgot to mention, but it is legislative related. I wanted to mention it during the PUC staff update, is that most of you remember that in fall of last year, the PUC, due to new legislation that was passed last spring, had to file a State of 911 report with the legislature. We got that to them before the deadline of September 15th. But part of that legislation also requires the PUC to make an in-person presentation to the legislature in January. That has been scheduled for next Tuesday, the 15th, is that right? Is next Tuesday the 15th? Okay, yes, next Tuesday. We don't have an exact time. I'm guessing it'll be in the morning. As soon as I get an exact time, I can send it out to everyone. Those are webcast, but they're also open to the public if you wanted to be here. I have invited Monica to be there to help answer questions. I'll be doing the presentation, but if they have questions that relate more to things outside of what the PUC does with 911, then hopefully Monica will be able to help fill them in on that. And I think it should be interesting. So if you're interested in following that, you can.
Who are you supposed to speak in front of? Is it a committee?
It's a joint committee. It's a joint meeting of and they've changed the names of the committees,
And
but
also business and transportation.
there was business affairs and labor on the Senate side, and it was transportation, business, and
On the House side.
something on the House
Energy.
side, but they've changed their names. Lynn?
And energy, they removed the energy piece. I think it's largely those same committees, and we're confirming it, but like usual, I think for most people who've been over there, normally what they do is convene their committees after the general session, and you never know how long the general session's going to go. And from what we understand, we're second on their committee agenda behind some transportation or CDOT thing. And so it's kind of fluid, so just know we'll never have an exact precise time. But hopefully the general sessions aren't going that long these days, and they'll get through it pretty quickly.
So it's a joint committee, or you have to meet twice?
No, just joint group of both the House and Senate committee, which is good because I don't want to do it twice.
Equal access. Is Holly on
Holly, are you on the call? Guess not.
Nothing heard? Daryl, did you have anything else for outage?
We have not met yet. I did send an email out to the outage committee members asking when would be a good time later this month. I need to get back with them and schedule that. So my idea going forward on the outage committee is to actually look at specific outages. If there are any that are particularly large or troublesome, we can talk about those, and maybe if there's additional information the committee wants to get from CenturyLink or one of the rural carriers, whoever was involved in it, we can relay that request for more information. But the main thing I want to do is look at trends, see if there are things that, with another set of eyes on it, we can identify. And so hopefully I'll have more to report when we come back in March.
Prepaid and collections, Jack.
I need to schedule a meeting. We will follow up on some of the past things that we left on the table about prepaid. Forward from there.
And report committee.
So we provide a report from the task force to the commission every other meeting, and this is the off meeting, so I don't have any report for you this time. But be watching for a draft report for approval before the March meeting.
Okay. 911 Colorado Foundation. No update. And Kim Coleman for Colorado Public Safety Broadband.
Later this month, our office will be kicking off a FirstNet AT&T coverage analysis program. Kind of mentioned in the past, but we're launching it this month finally. We'll have Galaxy S9 smartphones and Pelican cases with Sierra wireless routers, mag-mount antennas, so you can deploy handhelds, or you can deploy in-vehicle solutions that will just power off your 12 volt. And both will be equipped with different software that will assess the performance of the AT&T FirstNet network. We will aggregate, analyze that data, provide it back to your agency as well as to AT&T FirstNet. And we're able to focus on areas where you believe there are gaps in the coverage that has already been deployed on the network. So if you have any, that's free to agencies. If you have any interest in doing that, please contact us. I'll provide a link of a form you can fill out, and then our office, Ed and Sarah, will be in contact with your agency about how we can do that. We can give you both types of devices. We can give you multiple devices. Right now we have about 11 devices across both types, but we have the ability to increase that if there's interest. We will be hosting a lunch and learn. We generally do those monthly. This month it'll be with Kyocera on January 30th at 12 p.m. They'll provide an overview of their devices, applications, and accessories. And then I'm sad to share that I'm going to be leaving the state next week, and I am going to FirstNet. And I'm going to stand up a public safety experience and innovation program that we're really hoping is going to take public safety's input and requirements on what they need for technology, and to advocate and get industry and FirstNet to do that for you, independent of the networks you use. So I will just be out of Boulder. When I get my information, I will reach out to all of you and share it. And I expect that in my new role, I will be in contact with a lot of you about what you want FirstNet to be doing as an advocacy organization for you. So a little bit bittersweet. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you over the years. I do want to introduce Ed Mills. Many of you may already know him. He is our technology and innovation program manager within the broadband office, and he's also a firefighter at Evergreen Fire. He's a lieutenant, and he will be the contact going forward.
Yeah.
Like going over to the dark side.
I know. I know. I'd like to think that they are going to be open to hearing input from people within its state and local government for a long time about how they can improve that program. And my job will not be to come out and ask for you to use the FirstNet network. My job will be to get input from you about how they can advocate better for kids. So, yeah, that's all I have.
So she's going to the dark side, but she's bringing light with her. Kim, you have been the face of Colorado's FirstNet interface, I guess is a way to put it, for since the beginning of it. And I think you will be greatly missed in that role. You've done a terrific job. I don't think anybody would deny that. And we appreciate everything you've done for us.
I still look forward to working out with all of you, though. I'll just be down.
Yeah, you still have to come to our meetings.
I will try.
Okay. I won't hold you to that.
I just concur with what Daryl said. Thank you for all your hard work. I know you put a lot of time and dedication into that project. Thank you. PSCS report, Carl.
Carl Simpson or Deanie Shin?
I don't have any report for me today.
Okay.
And Division of Fire Prevention and Control report. To my knowledge, there's not been a meeting, so I don't think.
Okay. I was gonna say, I don't know who's on that group because we've got like 5 members in there.
Moving on to old business. Do you have anything for old business? Okay, so we'll move on to new business, the EZNet users group.
So the tariff settlement that was approved by the commission calls for the creation of a user group committee calls for the task force to create a user group committee for the ESINet. And that user group committee will be doing things like looking at performance reports about the ESINet, but also helping to develop the future of the ESINet, what new features might be offered by CenturyLink, or how basically the roadmap for how it goes from being an ESINet to being Next Gen 911. And so I think we're at a point today. Tim, do you want to say any more about what CenturyLink expects out of that user group?
Well, I think we also use it as a forum for the implementation of this. I think we can incorporate the meetings that we were just talking about earlier today. So I think we just wanted to create an opportunity where, as we're going through this, everybody had a place to raise issues and not have to try to chase us down and all that. So, and then also ensure that if someone else might have had a similar issue, here twice, we can all learn that this was an issue here. So I just feel like we just wanted to be a place where we can all come together and meet and talk and ensure that this goes smoothly over the next couple of years.
And since it is an order of the commission, I don't know that the task force really needs to have a vote to create it, but we do need to maybe talk about how to structure it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I can read the
Yeah, go
settlement said that within 30 days of the approval of the agreement, which goes back to the December 24th date, that's when everything got approved, the settlement of the tariff, at least to move forward with it. So that it says that we agree to jointly request that the chair of the PUC 911 task force establish a user committee. So I think maybe I can just put a motion to a request to create this committee.
Sounds good to me.
We need to do that today.
Well, we just have to, within 30 days of the approval requested, so I guess,
Yeah.
We won't have another meeting.
but we won't have another meeting. Right?
Well, that sounded like a motion to me, so maybe we just need a second now.
So, any volunteers to be on the EZNet users group meeting?
If I can, some of the things we had talked also about the user group is would function like a regular user group where there'd be like an email list or the different authorities to understand what problems others were having and to exchange information between PSAPs and authorities as well as with CenturyLink.
And one of the things that we can do, Joe, is once the committee's identified, then the resource center could create those email lists and maintain it or whatever. So
Something else I would suggest is that rather than calling for volunteers to be members, maybe every 911 authority is automatically a member.
There was also discussion of what the structure would be. I think we left it that the task force would kind of figure out what would be the best structure to go forward.
Mm-hmm.
Is everybody a member? Do we have kind of a committee that brings together, information from the PSAP so that CenturyLink is interfacing at one meeting with everybody? We have a small group that's kind of representing the committee, but still have the other advantages of the user group.
We know from.
I think that's an open discussion item.
Yeah, and and I would say that from past experience with like the 911 Training Standards Institute, where every PSAP in the state is technically a member, but you always get the same 20 of them showing up. I don't think there's a danger of too many people showing up and making too big of a group, but it's nice if they're all members so that if they decide they want to get involved or someone convinces them to get involved, there's not another process they have to go through before they can start participating.
Yeah, I think part of the concern was those of us who were participating and intervened in the proceeding didn't feel that we should be speaking on behalf of all of the authorities and PSAPs on the state who would be affected, by the user group, and they also have ideas as to how it should specifically be structured. That's why we thought it was best to leave it to the task force to kind of figure out how to structure that.
I think that we want to, I think everybody should get, all the information that we share, similar to how the other committees or subcommittees are formed, and there's certain folks that are working on issues, but then we report it out each time in this forum. I just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask questions and find out information and see how things are going for others without necessarily making it unwieldy. I mean, if we just make it everybody, and I'm not saying it can't be, then we already have that, right? That's what this meeting is, right? So just want to make sure that anybody that wants to participate can. This isn't limited to just who is in the settlement, and as Joe said, this is for everyone. So we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate in this.
Question on that. So is the intention behind this, CenturyLink's probably the ones attracting some of the themes and for me to get aggregating these things, or with this group more responsible for that?
Well, I think it'd probably be a mix of it, frankly. I think as we're working through with West Communications, or West Side Services, excuse me, we can then be able to report out things that we're learning as we're going through the next 6 months of kind of building the network and the interfaces and all those things. But then I think as you all are probably going to have questions over the next several months of, okay, so how are things going? What's going on? Do I need to be should I be doing something while I'm sort of waiting for you? I think that's what the user group could help collaborate all those types of things.
I like your implication though, Tim, that maybe part of what we're starting out from a conversation to the authorities. Look, here it comes. Here's the fiscal impact. And we maybe at that same time, we talk about that there is a user group so that they understand, especially for the authorities who don't have the resources to do best practices to plan to implement the technologies that they need to. And those who are the first in, if you will, like Douglas County, who's first on the list. What were the lessons learned? What did they have to have in place? And then through this user group, we share this information amongst all the PSAPs, because while everybody could be a member, they're not going to be active. So who is most passionate about it? So.
Well, in addition, I know there was one user group that there was a problem with a vendor that was downgrading trouble tickets, the severity of them without communicating with the customers, and that was addressed through a user group. And so do we also want to have kind of a committee or a committee chair or a group that plays an advocacy role when issues come up to bring them and, ride herd on them? Crack the whip on him to get him fixed.
Well, I think you're going to need a chair regardless.
Daryl?
Jackie?
I'm just wondering, because this is new, if the task force votes to implement this group today, and then perhaps the next task force meeting, we set aside 30 minutes either before or after the meeting for those who want to sit and hash out what this looks like to move forward with it. Or do we want to wait that long and try to do that today? I think that with our 30-day, the task force does need to vote to implement it. But I do think I'm wondering if it would be appropriate while we're first starting to keep it with this meeting, because it is where the majority of people get their information right now. And then as Monica says, as your roadshow goes out and all that, we can include, please attend this portion of the, PUC task force, maybe setting aside a certain amount of time or something along with this, giving
This is Kimberly. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I just wanted to recommend that maybe we wait until March, and that way it can be on the agenda and people would have ample opportunity to know what's going to be discussed and an opportunity to come and talk and participate and express desire to be on a committee like this and run for different positions, etc.
So I'm going to propose we have a user group committee.
No. Bruce?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but new committees are created essentially by the executive order of the chair. It's not a vote of.
Oh, that's correct.
of the
Yeah,
group.
you're right.
Danette has the right to, and she has an order by the commission to create this group.
Right.
So if she creates the group today, before the 30-day window, that we have fulfilled that requirement. And I think I like Kimberly's idea of waiting until the March meeting to talk about what it's going to look like. And so everybody that wants to be involved could be part of that conversation.
I think the 30-day window, the only requirement is that we simply make the request. So I mean, I think we're in compliance with, we've made the request, we agree we want this user group to get stood up. So we're making that request. And then I think we wait till the intervening time between now and the March meeting, probably issue that we're going to stand this committee up. Come in March, we'll talk about how we want to staff it.
And I like Jackie's idea of having a separate time period during or before the March meeting to go through these things. Which kind of, I think it dovetails with Kimberly's suggestion as well.
Well, my committee suggestion is that we don't have a group and a targeted to kind of talk about it beforehand. Then we'll come back with the same very general, non-committal thing. So it would help if we actually have some people who discuss it and kind of outline what the options are.
Well, I think that's a good possibility. I think one thing I was going to suggest is maybe if everyone send me their thoughts as to how they would like to see it organized, I can kind of organize those different options as discussion points for the pre-meeting in March.
Has everybody seen this language in the settlement agreement?
I'm sure they haven't.
No. We laid out, let's see here, we laid out 6 things that we kind of discussed about why we thought this user group would be useful. So it's about the implementation and transition plans, any common issues. So like I was saying, if somebody had something that came up, let's understand why and make sure it doesn't happen again. Or something that worked really well with one, let's incorporate it somewhere else. Change management, so just potential future changes to the tariff. Dispute mediation was one of the things that we talked about, having a place to raise sort of informally concerns or problems that you're having. Because as part of the user group, the PUC will be part of it, so that's sort of the informal complaint portion. And then just any other issues, so maybe communication amongst CenturyLink and you all, or with the commission, any other functions or functionalities of the service. Some of that kind of goes back to some of the potential services new services for the ESI net. So those were the things that we listed in the settlement as reasons why standing up a user group makes sense.
So I think the 2 questions we have on the table, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is should we create a committee to form the committee now, or would you rather
to form the committee, the kind of focused discussion?
Right, a committee to talk about how the committee will be formed. Or do you want to just send in ideas and then I can put together bullet points for a pre-meeting at the March meeting? Which
I like option 2.
I would just like to say that we've created the committee, or we're going to form the committee, and I like option 2, that we can send ideas to you, and then that gives people time to think about it, and then we can either meet prior to or after.
So what I can do is I can put a call out so the people who aren't involved today can still get input on that and get out a list of those discussion points before the meeting in March. so that people can be prepared to discuss them.
Yeah, why don't we have you just take this language?
Yeah.
This up.
That'll be like the committee's charter.
I would prefer not to meet before the meeting because it'll take me 2 hours to get here if I have to be here at 9 and 45 minutes up.
There's already a meeting after this meeting.
Maybe we can
Just
have,
during the meeting.
maybe, if there's not too much else on the agenda.
Yeah, we may have to
We
extend the
often take
meeting.
up the 2 hours.
I'll think about that, figure out the best way. But I do take your point, Joe. It's difficult for some people to be here earlier than 10. I have a blank screen. Any other thoughts or comments on the best way to approach creation of the user group? That's it.
Right, we'll put it on the agenda for the March meeting. Everybody get your ideas to Daryl. The WEA test results.
Did you want to do this here? Do you want to go?
Yeah.
Oh, you just turn around so they can see you? Okay. Okay, this is Cheryl Garcia, and for the Motorola people or any other guests that are here who don't know her, she is speech impaired. I'm not deaf. I'm not blind. I don't have CP, ALS, or MS. I don't have STP. Oh, AT&T or PMS. I'm just saying what I think she said. So she has two stories as to how she lost it. One is that you can take the one you want. One is that she broke a chain letter. You get those chain letters that say you need to pass this on to 10 people or bad things will happen to you. You can believe that one, or that it's a genetic imbalance. That's okay. So she was helping gather data to determine what the WEA test results were. And she wants to know how many got the wireless emergency test on October 3rd. It was that presidential test a few months back. All right, I got it. He did not get it. We were at a class in Cortez, and about half the class got it. I was sitting right next to Cheryl, and she got it, and I did not. And so she surveyed roughly 300 people to send on to the people that were collecting this, and what? It was nationwide. She surveyed about 300 people, the various contacts nationwide. And it was roughly about 50% who received it, which is a little bit less than what the public service notice that Cheryl was looking at, which was the public service notice put out by FCC in conjunction with FEMA, who sent out the alert. And they sent 2 alerts out. The EAS, which is your standard that they've used for decades, on the TV, on the radio. This is a test of your emergency alert system. But you either have to be watching TV or listening to the radio. And so, so they put one out. I've been doing this since 2011. I will push and loop. What? What about? Did you get the alert?
Yeah.
All right. My concern has been this alert has to be universal. If I get it, he should get it as well. Everyone should get it. It's fine. Yeah. And what? For the past 5 years, they have not included WEA, the WEA test, which is one that they put out 2 minutes before, 2 minutes after the EAS for the wireless folks. So that's mainly your cell phones, the cell phone people, which is most of us. The FCC the FCC said overall the group, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau ran the numbers for the FCC to help with this. They said about 72% nationwide got it. The Cheryl survey was a little bit below that, but overall nationwide it was about 72% who received the WEA alert. I have more information. I will send it to Daryl, and he can distribute it. Is that what this is? What I will send to Daryl. And it would be 12 considerations for accessible emergency communications. There was something passed in conjunction with the Americans with Disabilities Act that said it needed to be all inclusive. Title 4. And that was that the 1990 thing that came out? Title 4 says that you need to have universal alerts. So you can see it, you can read it, or and you can hear it. Anything else, Shirley? Okay. And any questions? What Cheryl was saying was kind of what the FCC put out in their public notice, is that people in the same region, some were getting it, some were not, and They said there was a real problem with it. 2018 was the first year they did it, unlike the EAS, which has been, like I said, doing it for decades, and they had about 95% distribution, and so about 95%. Here, 72% for the first year that they tried this with wireless. And they're asking if you get it, send it on to whoever is what?
Retransmit.
Retransmit. Yeah. And so they gather more data. They said their data was preliminary. They're going to be coming out with more information. Hopefully, they'll come out with data on people with disabilities and others with access and functional needs. They don't know at this time. I'm going to email the FCC with your results. So what? I didn't get that sure. What? They're on furlough right now. Yes. When they get back to work, she will get in touch with them, and that's all she has. Any questions she asked or comments? Oh, yeah. Wait, I have something else. But wait, there's more. I have been working with the Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center for wireless technologies, the folks down in Atlanta, Georgia, to get the information to them. Any questions or comments? This is Jackie. My pastor's girlfriend.
My only comment would be, I know that, like Cheryl said, this is the first year that the FCC has done a nationwide WEA test, and obviously not everybody got the messages, but that's why they do the test. So hopefully they'll make improvements and work with the carriers to make sure it goes out to everybody. I certainly wouldn't want that job because they have to work with multiple carriers, different terrains, different cell tower configurations, different handsets, different operating systems. But hopefully they can improve on that, and maybe they'll do another test later this year.
They do it every year. Denver has a separate. Denver has a separate test.
Yeah.
They also ran it as well earlier this year, or earlier last year, late last. That's all she wants to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anything else for new business? Moving on, anything for open discussion?
I wasn't on the agenda, but in the past 48 hours, it's been kind of interesting in my world. If you do not know, Comtech is in the process of acquiring Solacom. A lot of people know Comtech through their acquisition of TCS a few years ago. TCS is very focused on wireless routing and database and next generation core services, which is a great complement to the thing Solacom does. There's another division within Comtech on the enterprise and the federal department where they do a lot of satellite communications. And again, more involved with wireless, GIS, and location services. So they're about a $600 million company. So for my friends up in Canada, this is a big change. For me, it's my 8th merger and acquisition. Solacom will continue as a standalone operating company. We will not be merged into any Comtech public safety division because quite honestly, they don't have anything that does what Solacom does now. So there's nothing really for them to absorb into. So our president, one of the founders of Solacom, is going to continue as president of Solacom as part of Comtech. So for the 500 plus PSAPs we have and all the statewide solutions we do and our Australia project where we're redoing their national 911 program or 112, I believe it's called. They'll get mixed up. It's going to be business as usual for our folks, our knock, our support, our continued product development, keep right on going. For the pursuit of next gen that we're doing for like our I3 networks we have in Maine and Vermont and Hampshire, et cetera, it's going to be a value add because there are certain functional elements within Solacom where we've had to partner with Geocom or a data master, and then we can also partner with Comtech. So it's going to be an improvement so we not just continue doing single PSAPs or big regional projects like our North Central Texas COG or the wireless routing project we just turned up with Maricopa, Arizona, where we're doing all the wireless routing in Maricopa. This is just going to be an expansion of the product offerings of Comtech and Solacom. So it's going to be pretty fast turnaround. They're expecting 2 to 3 months because again, they're not merging us with any division. They're literally just acquiring us, and our president will report to the C-level execs within Comtech, and it's going to keep marching forward and continuing to develop some leading products in the next generation 911 division. With that, most of what I know at this point on the acquisition, I've been spending a lot of time on the phone with a lot of customers here. What's up with it? But if you want, feel free, ask any questions. If I could help, I will, or I'll take it back to the next item or update you guys. I'm sure there'll be more webinars and information coming out. Okay, thank you.
Cheryl?
We're having our SEMA conference February 20th to the 22nd in Loveland. And SEMA stands for the Colorado Emergency Management Association. They have their annual conference will be in Loveland. And we're looking for sponsors.
I can send that information out over the user email list.
Okay, anything else for open?
Do we know if lunch has arrived?
It is. It's outside.
So
So with that, entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting if everybody. Cheryl makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
No.
I'll second it. Are we adjourning or we're just going out and get lunch so that?
I think in the past we've technically adjourned and then
Okay.
gone to the speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't leave just because we're adjourning. Get your food, come back in, and we've got 2 speakers for you today.